Today we are going to recap another Tyler Perry drama atrocity. He knows how to make unintentionally funny dramas about trifling cheating hoes. In a rundown office, a therapist is in session with a young married couple, Bradley and Lisa. The wife admits that she's falling out of love with her husband, but he insists that they can work it out and that he can change. Sensing his wife's unwillingness to work with him, the husband walks out of the room. The wife tries to apologize, but he's already out of earshot. Alone with the counselor, the wife tells her that she feels guilty and that her husband deserves better than her. The counselor notices a change within the wife's demeanor and can tell that she has met someone else. She's a trifling hoe. Sensing the wife's distress, the counselor decides to tell her a story about her sister, Judith. In the flashbacks, we see Judith and her childhood sweetheart, Brice, growing up through the years together. They met at church as kids and were soon inseparable. As teenagers, Judith and Brice fall in love and would sneak out together to spend time with each other. Finally, Brice asks for Judith's hand in marriage when they are old enough, and she says yes. Once married, the two moved to Washington, D.C. to begin their life together. The pair didn't have much, but they were happy. Brice works at a small pharmacy, dreaming of owning one someday, while Judith dreams of becoming a marriage counselor. Knowing how hard the process of becoming a marriage counselor is. In the meantime, Judith works as the in-house therapist at a matchmaking agency owned by a well-known personality named Janice Wise. At work, Judith is constantly bombarded by the presence of Ava, Janice's assistant and secretary. Ava keeps telling her to work on her appearance to better fit with the company's standards, but Judith refuses to comply, seeing nothing wrong with her choice of clothing. We can't all look like Kim K. One day, a new client walks in, and Janice calls Judith and Ava into her office to meet the man. His name is Harley Madison, a multi-millionaire social media inventor, and it turns out that he is looking to invest in Janice's matchmaking company. Judith catches Harley's eye and asks Janice if he can have Judith walk him through the working of the company. At Judith's office, Brice expresses his doubts about investing, saying that the business might be too taboo for him to get a return. To his surprise, Judith agrees with him, spiking his interest in her. As their conversation progresses, Brice realizes that he has seen Judith before, and the pair realize that they pass by each other on their morning runs. Amused, Judith's demeanor changes, no longer uncomfortable with Harley's presence as soon as they find common ground. Meanwhile at work, Brice meets a new employee, Melinda. He trains Melinda, but when his boss expresses concern about Melinda and her questionable actions, Brice takes it on himself to ask her if there's something wrong and reveals she is on the run from an abusive ex-boyfriend. After a long day at work, Judith gets home to find Brice already waiting for her. Judith immediately expresses her frustrations about her job and how she can't wait to leave and start her own marriage counseling business. Brice agrees, but tells her to wait until they are more financially stable. Sensing Judith's foul mood, Brice decides to take Judith out for dinner at a $5.99 buffet. There ain't nothing that cheap nowadays. While walking towards their car, a group of men start catcalling Judith, but Brice reprimands her and walks her over to their car. She becomes upset with Brice when he refuses to confront the group. That night before bed, Brice apologizes, but Judith doesn't answer. The next day, Judith meets Harley at work. He asks her to work with him and make him understand the company better before he can decide to invest in it. He hands her the company questionnaire that he answered out of curiosity. He asks Judith to assess him according to the questionnaire, and when she gets the assessment right, his curiosity is piqued. Harley and Judith work late to work on their assignment, and the pair bond over their shared interests. When Judith asks about his personal life, Harley reveals that he had a failed long-term relationship that he is still recovering from. He then asks Judith if she is happy with her marriage, and she says yes. Before she could leave, Brice brings up the questionnaire and inquiries about the absence of sex in the surveys. Judith says she does not believe in premarital sex because she was brought up in a Christian household. After realizing that Judith has only been with one man all her life, Harley says that her bedroom life is boring. Judith argues that she does not need to explore because she and her husband are very compatible. After the conversation, Judith starts questioning her bedroom life with Brice. When she gets home, she tries to seduce him, but fails miserably. In the morning, Judith prepares for her run while Brice is still asleep. She then heads to the park and looks for Harley, who she knows is also on his morning run. She stages a run-in with him, and the pair run together. Judith crashes with a biker and falls on the ground. She says that she's fine, but Harley insists on carrying her. They end up at his house, where Judith rests in the living room while Harley calls for a nurse to check on her. He hands her an ice pack and helps her with her bruise. Sheesh, it's getting really hot in here. Harley tells Judith that she's an amazing woman and that her husband is lucky to have her. Back home, Judith decides to change her hair and makeup for her birthday, and Brice fails to notice the change or even remember her birthday. Later at work, Judith receives flowers that she believes are from Brice and is overjoyed at the thought that her husband did not forget about her birthday after all. Harley appears and notes her change in appearance and asks her if she liked the flowers he sent. Judith thanks him, but is visibly disappointed that they are not from Brice. Judith asks Harley why he's focusing his attention on her when he can have anyone else in the company to help him with his project. Harley admits that he finds her extremely beautiful and interesting. He claims that he is willing to do anything to be near her and wants a hanky-panky relationship despite the fact that she is married. At home, Judith leaves a cupcake with a candle in it on the counter. Realizing his mistake, Brice apologizes and performs a song in a cowboy outfit for her. Judith accepts Brice's apology and the two make up. The next day at work, Janice sends Judith to New Orleans with Harley to finalize a deal with shareholders, telling her to flirt with Harley for the sake of the company and also to be careful. Judith's co-worker, Ava, gives her a makeover to prepare for her trip. She rides Harley's private jet. I'm sure they're going to ride something else as well. The pair head to New Orleans where they complete the business deal. Before their flight back home, they decide to go dancing and sightseeing. On the way home, Harley tells Judith that he felt taken for granted when he was with his ex, and Judith empathizes with him, realizing that she's feeling the same thing with Brice. Harley then starts to seduce Judith. At first, she tries to reason with him and remind him that she's married, but Harley is unrelenting, and they end up being part of the Mile High Club. He takes her home and meets Judith's Christian mother, Miss Sarah. At home, Judith starts to regret what happened with her and Harley, but her feelings are trumped by her unhappiness with Brice's inattentiveness. The next day, Judith gets a call from Harley asking her to come over, and she sneaks out to meet him. The pair end up sleeping together again, and Harley introduces Judith to white powder that makes you feel good. Well, that certainly took a huge turn. Over breakfast, Harley tells Judith that he's willing to invest in her company should she decide to open one someday. Judith is overjoyed, but her happiness fades as soon as Harley asks her to leave Brice in exchange for his help. When she tells him that she can't leave her husband for him, Harley tells her to leave, and she becomes upset and starts throwing drinks and food at him. Back at home, Judith and her mother Sarah get into an argument over Harley and about Sarah having abandoned Judith's father for the Lord years ago. Sarah tells Judith that she's going to hell if she continues her relationship with Harley. We all going to hell anyway. Might as well enjoy it, girl. Judith laughs at her mother, which leads to Sarah slapping her and leaving while spewing Bible verses at her daughter. Is she performing an exorcism? Hearing the argument, Brice asks Judith what happened, but she refuses to discuss the argument with him and goes to take a shower. The next day, Judith decides to leave Brice to be with Harley. She shows up at Harley's front door, apologizes to him, and the couple make up. Back at work, Janice fires Judith immediately after finding out about her plans to quit in a week to start a new business with Harley. At work, Brice tells Melinda that he thinks Judith is having an affair and asks her for advice. Melinda simply tells him to fight for his wife. Brice decides to head to Harley's party and finds an intoxicated Judith on the dance floor. He drags Judith outside and begs her to return to him, promising that if she comes home with him, he will try to become a better husband to her. Despite this, Judith tells him that she feels dead with him and that Harley makes her feel alive. Judith then chooses to stay with Harley. Brice goes over to Melinda's place where she comforts him and encourages him that things will get better. The next day, Judith and Harley return to the apartment she shared with Brice to pick up a laptop and is surrounded by her mother and church members in a prayer circle. Sarah grabs Judith, trying to prevent her from leaving, but Harley knocks Sarah down and forces Judith to leave. Red flag alert! Back at Harley's house, Judith is outraged by his treatment of her mother, and after a heated argument, Harley begins to beat her after she attempts to leave. Well, we should have seen that coming. Melinda comes over to cook for Brice. While cooking, she confesses that she contracted HIV from her ex, who is revealed to be Harley. After realizing that Judith might be in trouble, the pair quickly heads over to Harley's apartment. Brice breaks into Harley's place with Melinda and finds a bloody and bruised Judith sleeping in the bathroom. After taking Judith to his truck, Brice goes back into the house and begins to beat Harley before he is stopped by Melinda. As Harley regains consciousness, he calls out to Melinda, whose real name is Karen. Brice threatens him to stay away from both Karen and Judith, and they leave him lying on the floor, beaten and semi-conscious. Cut back to present day, the marriage counselor has finished the story, and Lisa wonders how the story ends. The marriage counselor tells her that Judith contracted HIV as well, but not Brice. Lisa thanks the marriage counselor and decides to stay with her husband. The marriage counselor, who is revealed to be the older Judith, then goes to the pharmacy to get her HIV medicine for her T-cell count from Brice. Judith tells Brice she has now decided to follow the path of her savior, God. After they speak, a woman and a little boy walk into the pharmacy, revealed to be Brice's new wife and child, making it clear that they have divorced. In front of Judith, Brice hugs and kisses his new family and tells them he loves them. Judith then walks slowly out of the pharmacy with huge regret. Well, if this ain't a propaganda movie telling us to stay faithful to our boring spouses. Honestly, though, Judith should have gone about the marriage the correct way if she was so unhappy, and Brice should have done a better job at making his wife happy.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.